Hey everybody, let's get started with our next video. Let me show up on the screen here. How you doing? Here we go. Let's go ahead and consider some important topics related to Darwin. Before we get there, let me remind you of this important idea, that biologists have organized species, organized all critters into groups. And we discussed this briefly in class. We know that there are domains and there are kingdoms and there are phyla. And just to remind you here of the three main domains, domain bacteria, domain archaea, and domain eukarya. And we, of course, can take eukarya and then divide that into three different kingdoms. Protists are a little different than the other way here. But we're still stuck with the issue of where did all these things come from? We've classified all these millions of species, or at least the ones we know about, but how do we explain their origins? How can we explain both the connections between life as well as the differences between life? That takes us into a conversation about what evolution really is. Evolution is really a core theme in biology. Evolution simply means change. We can look at change on a variety of levels. You'll hear discussions about genetic change versus species change versus macro and microevolution. Forget all of that. Evolution's about change. So what Darwin did, and we discussed this somewhat in class, was give a mechanism. How does change occur? And Darwin said by natural selection, we can explain at least how some evolution has occurred. To say that evolution represents change means to say that all of Earth is connected through a series of changes, if you will, over the last 3 billion plus years. So what Darwin did is he laid out a logical argument for evolution by natural selection. Please, 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 please understand, evolution is not the same as natural selection. Evolution is change. Natural selection is one way that change can occur. So before we get into what Darwin said, let's do a quick true-false. Okay, true or false? Populations tend to be somewhat stable in size. That is true. And Darwin noted that populations don't get huge and then get real small and get huge and get real small. You tend to have pretty much populations are kind of in balance with everything else and are not really exploding in size. They're staying stable. True or false? Resources are unlimited. You know the answer to this from our discussions in the last unit. Resources are limited. So this is false. All individuals in a species are exactly alike. Clearly not true. We have species with a variety of differences, and we can talk about the importance of those variations in a second. Traits can be inherited. True. Some of our traits are acquired. That is, after we are conceived and we're born and we're living, you may choose to dye your hair or build up big muscles or lose a lot of weight or gain a lot of weight or whatever. You can change some things, but clearly the number of eyes you have is determined not by things you do, but by the genetics you have. So if populations tend to be stable in size, resources are limited, individuals are different, and traits can be inherited, that takes us into something that we need to talk about in relation to Darwin. His observation was this, that every species has the potential, an important word, the potential to increase its numbers very rapidly by exponential growth. And recall, we're saying that it's possible for populations to potentially grow like this. But is that what we see? Not usually. All organisms are going to have limits on their resources. Food, shelter, sunlight, nesting sites, whatever it is, there's going to be a limit. So what Darwin concluded was, if that's the case, if populations could explode but don't, then there must be competition among those people or those rabbits or those elephants or those gazelles for resources. Okay, that's important. Too many individuals could be produced. We have limited resources, so that means there's competition for the remaining resources. So let's bring in the idea of heredity. Darwin noted that individuals are variable. So, and this variation rather, is due to genetic differences. So the reason these lady beetles here are of different colors and patterns is because of genetic differences. Some of these variations may be important for you to win that battle. Let's go back. Some of these variations may help you survive better and reproduce better than other individuals with other traits. Those individuals with the better traits are going to leave behind more offspring. The term we use here is we say these individuals have a higher fitness. Fitness doesn't mean being able to lift weights. Fitness means, from a genetics or a biology standpoint, it means the ability to reproduce, it means the ability to survive, rather, and leave offspring. Individuals with the better traits have the higher fitness. So, let me come back, sorry. So individuals with traits better suited for that environment compete better and will therefore, on average, leave more offspring. I'm going to say it one more time. Important stuff. Individuals with traits better suited to compete in that environment, because environments can change, but individuals for that environment with the best traits are, on average, going to leave more offspring for the next generation. So Darwin's conclusion was simply this, that natural selection is this process of non-random, unequal reproductive success. There's a lot of negative terms in there, so let's make sure this makes sense. Darwin said that the winners of life's lottery, the winners of those people or those things that get resources, isn't random. It's based on the traits you have. And because it's based on the traits you have, and some traits are better than others, that's going to lead to unequal success in reproduction, which results in natural selection. So what Darwin could understand then is how natural selection could explain evolution. Darwin realized that the traits that enhance survival and reproduction are going to increase over time. If you have the better traits for that environment, and your offspring have the better traits for that environment, and their offspring have the better traits for that environment, over time we're going to see more and more and more of the better traits represented in the whole population. Adaptation is the accumulation of these favorable traits. Over time, a population becomes genetically such that it is well suited for that particular environment. So Darwin proposed that natural selection is going to result in what he called descent with modification. What's another term for descent with modification? Change, evolution. So evolution can then help us explain both the diversity and the unity of life. If everything is connected, we should expect to find commonality among most things. And in fact, we do. We said at the beginning of the class that one thing that characterizes life is it has to have water. Okay, that makes sense. Everything has to have DNA. That makes sense. How come plants don't have a special kind of DNA and animals have a different kind of DNA? It's all DNA, just how it's organized. So you can look at evidence to suggest that all of life is connected, which suggests that it has changed over time from common ancestry, and yet life is diverse. Okay, I was interrupted, so let me just wrap up here. Evolution does explain, again, diversity and unity. We understand that there's lots of different groups, and that is because evolution over time has helped result in changes in these groups. And yet there's a common thread to all of life. So what Darwin proposed was not evolution. Evolution had been around as an idea for a while. What Darwin proposed was a mechanism. By means of natural selection, by means of unequal reproduction and unequal success of different types, we end up over time with changes in populations that may eventually result in different species. That wraps up this video. This is sort of an important one. If these concepts don't make sense to you, you may want to take one more look. Thank you very much.